Hey everyone, in this video series I want to talk about controlling your wedge distances. And this is a technique for a stock shot. This doesn't account for needing to hit the ball excessively high. So usually something where you have some softness to the green, you have a little bit of green to work with. If you have to hit the ball higher, we usually just make some adjustments by adding a little bit of loft to these shots. Adding a little bit of loft, adding a little bit of speed. But so my technique for controlling wedge shots, it starts to change around 40 to 45 yards. That's when I start needing to make some changes to add some ball speed. So under 45 yards, I'm trying to slow the ball down for the most part. And then kind of once it gets over 45 yards, I have to start trying to speed the ball up a little bit. So anything under 45 yards is really just like a chip shot to me. Like I said, unless I need to hit it high, then it kind of changes. It becomes a little bit more of a smaller wedge shot, right? If I have a 40-yard shot and I've got to hit it high, it just essentially becomes a shorter full swing, something where I have added loft and such. But this case, I'm just trying to control my carry distance, and I'm factoring in that if I can hit it low, I'm going to be able to make more consistent contact with the golf ball, predict launch angle a little bit better, predict spin a little bit better, and therefore predict carry distance a little bit better. So that's why I choose that for my stock shot. So I like to do little wedge games, especially if you have a launch monitor, or you can kind of be at the range and you can pick out different targets, try to pick a couple, like pick a golf ball or a hill or something along those lines, and work on a few different yardages. But I like to do a little bit of a ladder if I have access to a launch monitor. But so as we're at the 30-40 yard shots, it's going to be a little bit more of a chipping motion, right? So my 30-yard shot's going to look something like this. And I'm talking carry numbers, right? So I'm not trying to work on a rollout 30-yard shot. I'm working on carry numbers always, right? Because carry numbers are consistent, rollout numbers are inconsistent. One day you're playing a course where it's really soft, the next day you're playing a course that's really firm. So you want to just kind of get used to working on carry numbers always. Those are the numbers that matter in golf. So that was a little short, but 40-yard shot, it's going to be about the same thing for me. I'm just going to add a little bit of length to the swing and a little bit of speed. On this, my vertical swing plane I'm not shallowing the club at all, right? If anything, I'm getting steeper on this. Steepness helps slow the ball down, right? So under 45 yards, I have no need to be trying to add ball speed to this, right? If anything, I'm trying to do things to slow it down. So we have good rhythm on these shots, always, right? Always having good rhythm in golf, but this is kind of what my 40-yard shot looks like. That was 42. Coming out at a 27-degree launch angle, 7,000 spin. So it's spinning a lot, right? When you're getting into those numbers, the only thing that can be challenging is getting to a front pin if you can't land it short at all, right? Or if you got to carry a bunker or something along those lines. So as I transition from a 40-yard shot to a 50-yard shot, I have to change my technique a little bit. And the only thing that I really do different there is my 50-yard shot kind of starts to feel like my 30-yard shot, but I'm letting the club shallow a little bit. So it's kind of like a 35-yard feel, but shallowing the club a little bit in transition is going to help the ball come out a little faster. So this is kind of what my 50-yard shot looks like, and you just get a feel for these by working it and figuring out what your changes are. Right now, 50 yards, I'm not really looking for any hip rotation, right? I don't need to hit it high yet, so I'm not really trying to rotate my hips much. It's mostly just an upper body and arm shot. And instead of the swing plane on my 30-yard coming like this a little bit, where I'm keeping the VSP steep, I'm just kind of working on letting this shallow a little bit and letting that kind of build some speed in there. So this is a 50-yard shot here. I was a little short, but what do we got, 46 there? And then my 60-yard shot is essentially like my 40-yard shot, 45-yard shot, but same thing, I'm shallowing it, right? No real hip motion going on here for me. So 60 yards looks a little something like this. That was 58, so pretty much right on the money there. And then as we start getting into 70, we start, for me, I need to start developing a little bit of swing speed, right? So the hips start working a little bit on the 70-yard shotter for me. That's how I kind of control my 70-yard. It's like very similar to the 60, but I just got a little bit of hip rotation going on there. So this is what my 70 looks like. That was pretty on the money there. What was that, 69? And then same thing for 80. My stock lob wedge is usually anywhere from like 90 to 94 yards. And then I can hit it, in the low hundreds, but I don't really like doing that unless I have like a front pin and I want to get the ball as high as I can with as much spin as possible. So 80-yard shots just add a little bit of more hip motion, and then I'm into my full stock shot as my 95 yarder. So best way to do this is to kind of build a little bit of a foundation of technique, right? Figure out where, what's the farthest chipping motion that you can hit, right? Because that's going to be your most consistent motion inside of 40 yards, and then kind of go from there. And with any of these shots, if I need to hit these higher, the challenge with having to hit a wedge higher is the lie matters more, right? So if I need to hit something high over a bunker from 40-50 yards, my lie is more important. So if you have a really tight lie and you've got to hit it high, you're just bringing in risk by hitting it high. So a lot of times try to find a happy medium of taking the higher percentage shot and limiting the bogey, right? Or limiting the double, right? Kind of depending on what type of situation you're in. But that's what golf is mostly about. It's more eliminating the bigger numbers, eliminating the doubles, eliminating the bogeys. So the higher shots with short wedges, touch wedges, they're going to be our lower percentage shots, higher risk. So essentially, the only difference that happens for me on those is I have more loft on the club, right? So I'll add some loft, I'll set up with the club more open, and the ball will be more forward in my stance. And if anything, the motion is just a little bit more of a picking motion and not so much of a, down, ball first, hitting ground after, right? So it's a little bit more of a flowy touch shot, right? So that's the difference. 30 yards, if I have green to work with, I'm close to it. My VSP is steep and I'm kind of driving it. If I got to hit it high over a bunker, getting a little further away from it, ball's going a little up in my stance, a little bit opening that club a little bit, and now I got to generate more speed. So a 30-yard shot might feel more like a 50-yard shot, right? You got to kind of get a feel and try to establish some baseline numbers and like a baseline setup. So if I open my club face this much and I take it back to about what my 50-yard shot feels like, and I add the 50-yard feel, like how far is that ball going to go, right? And you just got to work on developing those feels. So that's kind of what I do. Wedge distances are super important, so make sure to dedicate some time to this and develop some feels, so when you get on the golf course, you have an idea of how much speed and what kind of technique you need to put into it. So if you have any questions, comments, drop a comment below, and thanks for watching.